And boom, here we are, of course. Now, we are going to see that up top, they are going to be referred to as the Seagulls, that is Atascocita, as they is their team name. Of course, this is the high school league, so NTSH, of course, does stand for high school as well. So you might hear us call their names interchangeably, but that is typically what we are going for. And we're already starting things off with these bands getting underway. Dokkaebi and Habana are the first ones that are starting out for us today. Two defender bands, excuse me, attacker bands that are all things considered not too uncommon to see, especially on Bank. Dokkaebi is becoming a more and more powerful op recently, and Habana is just so powerful with those hatches, and those can be so important, especially when attacking the basement site. And the second band, the first defensive band is going to be Mira, of course, a very strong operator. Again, like we mentioned, on that basement floor, but it can also see quite a bit of other sites as well. So not too surprising that coming out in NTHS. They are going to have their band be a zombie, a pretty much must band nowadays, as we do end up seeing a zombie being so powerful with the extended setups you can do, the insight setups that you can do. She's a very versatile operator all around. And of course, that's what we're going to be seeing here today, as we do have, like I mentioned earlier, NTSH there, starting things out on defense, heading down to that basement site, lockers and CCTV. That's what I mentioned was so powerful about that site last time around when I mentioned all the bands are coming through. They're specifically targeting these sites. And I would say probably every single one of these operators are very powerful when attacking that basement side, and they are all, of course, very
Defenders, protect your
so
bombs
now
from
that we
being
get in,
defused by
we
attackers.
are going to be seeing a couple of very powerful operators that are not too surprising to see when it comes to this basement defense. Of course, we do have the ever-present Smoke and Jaeger, just very powerful operators that are mainstay on so many sites in the game for their versatility and that they
Bomb
really
located by attackers.
And of course, the extreme low anti-wall denial operator, or the wall denial operator. He is being brought out through those hatches, making it difficult for those to get opened by anything like an ace, which is being brought out by the Seagulls. But also, one of the most powerful roaming operators in the game at the moment, that being Oryx, the ability to just jump through these hatches. Well, a few of them are going to be open, at least on the top floor, and that will allow them to quickly move around and make it for the teams, as well as an operator that did not get banned, that we typically see get banned a lot, and that she's unbanned could prove essentially powerful, is of course going to be the Valkyrie. So we see Rudy running on right now. Those Valkyrie cameras could be providing a ton of intel to NTSH if the players on side of Seagulls aren't prepared for it. They don't have any operators that can really deal with that camera in terms of getting rid of it and finding out where it's located, but they do have bad karma pulling on that nook. Going to be able to sneak around the map, potentially find some picks on some of these roamers aren't paying attention, and get by those cameras and get into power positions they wouldn't otherwise be able to get into without getting caught out by these cameras. So as time goes on, we are of course going to be seeing more and more the players on Seagulls moving into these good positions and really just joining things out. So far, not a whole lot has happened. Both teams just kind of playing things a little bit slow. We do, of course, have the Thatcher that is playing above, not Gav, is just kind of making their way in this hallway right now, trying to see if they can find out any one of the roamers. There is one of them going to be upstairs. They're going to fire some shots through. Unfortunately, no damage has been found, as right now the Oryx just stalling for time. They know there's one on the window. Shots are going to the wall. They're looking for those headshot kills, and they don't find it, but they do end up making a hole in the wall. And I believe it's Nat Gav, actually. It is able to get the kill by removing Shadow Mug from the board. And well, now with that kill opening up and one of those roamers getting removed, they're going to start making their way towards the first floor. They cleared the second floor, working their way down. Very standard sweep coming out here. And of course, those drones are coming through to try to remove them. Of course, there is going to be the Jaeger that's currently playing inside of office, or in that doorway rather. They are going to be making it a little more difficult, as now they have to devote resources taking that down. There's already a minute 30 off the board from some time that was wasted. Moving into a more secure position here. The gunfight comes through, and it is going to be Spider Fries playing on that Jaeger that does end up getting the kill. They're going to lay down, try to reload. They're getting pincer from all sides, and they do end up going from Nat Gav. A double kill for them in this round as they do pick up the refrag. Now, with a minute 10 left on the clock, we are currently seeing the attackers in a man advantage, but we do have operators like Smoke, and we do still have those cameras from Valkyrie that are still down on site, and there isn't a whole lot of the sites, or excuse me, the bottom floor that Seagulls have access to really push in from. They're going to start getting these hatches open, however, so they're going to start making their way. We do see Flixer is dropping out in the server, going to start making some shots go through. They do get rid of some of that utility, trying to make sure it doesn't get removed, and we are going to see another thatch charge come through to try to make sure they can get rid of that hatch and start making their way into site proper. At the very least, have something that's very more difficult for these defenders to really pressure anything on. And now, as the time is ticking Now, right now, we are, of course, going to see the plant try to come through from Shrimp. They kind of sneak their way in. They are going to start planting. There's no way they didn't hear that. We are going to see smoke coming through. They're taking the damage. They're just trying to make sure they can get it down in time. And they do, but they do end up going down the process, and Starport doesn't end up getting that kill. But Flixer drops the hatch and gets a 2-piece, and it's all up to Moss. Left remaining. Unfortunately for Flixer, they do not see where they are, and they swing for the second, but unfortunately, Sam Fisher right there to close out the deal with the headshot kill. And with that, the attackers make a very well executed attack from the top floor, working their way down and manage to completely take over that round. That drop from the hatch, they're completely securing them as all those players, or two of the remaining players for the defense, were kind of clustered up there, and they weren't really able to do anything to kind of counteract that push. Just kind of sitting there and praying for the best they wouldn't drop that hatch, and they weren't able to stop it in time. And with them going down, that does mean the NTHS can go ahead and go back down to lockers, but I do believe Chaka's finally joined me. Is everything good on your end?
Everything is finally okay. Just had a little bit of a hiccup with the BMX call. Mic wasn't connecting properly, and so you couldn't really hear what I had to say. And it's not really too surprising that the first round does go to the Seagulls, as again, I was trying to say it before I realized that my mic wasn't catching my audio. The Seagulls have those games in hands, whereas NTHS don't, and so that plays into their match fitness, that plays into the form, that plays into the momentum that they can bring into these games, and it seems that played into that first round there.
10 seconds left.
Does seem like that indeed. Now we are, of course, going to have them heading back down to base, and as I mentioned, where we are going to see a bit of a change in strategy. We are moving away from the Jaeger, as there wasn't too many nades being brought out. In fact, if we look at the secondary utility from the attackers, they have no nades at all. It's a ton of breaching charges, though, which is quite hilarious. But instead, they are opting to bring another roamer to the board, that being the Vigil, an operator that, similar to Nook, can go ahead and bypass those cameras, but this time on the defending side. And we are going to see Bad Karma swap off that Nook, as I mentioned, and instead head over to this Valkyrie, where they can more effectively take care of those Valkyrie cameras and prevent that intel from getting to the defenders.
See the take here from the Seagulls happening on that top floor, looking to do what you would see as your average top-down clear, at least on a map like Bank, where roaming is a bit more prevalent than it is on other maps. The visual being spotted out by the drone, or not really seen as the signals were up, which can throw off the attackers as they try to clear this top floor a little bit, but it doesn't seem to do so. Remember, Bad Karma has that IQ in hand, and when the visual has their scanner, has their cloak on, you can spot that with the IQ. So a bit of smart play there from the Seagulls as they start the round off pretty well, clearing the top floor, but not fully clearing out the roamers, as Shadow still exists on that second floor.
Sadly, the adaptation was too much, and Spider Fries does end up going down, like you mentioned, and now things are in a really good spot for them, but a lot more time was stalled off the board than it was previously, as they're already down to 1:30. However, there are no more roamers this time around. They've all rotated back down into the site, it looks like. Actually, speaking of the site, it seems to be kind of empty. Where are these players? It's a bit difficult to tell immediately. We do, of course, see Star and Rudy that are on the board right here, but the other two they're kind of hidden, and of course it's because Shadow is at the top floor right now. Looks like they pushed up the banana stairs and are now making their way down these main stairs here, trying to see if they can find a pick, potentially make things go a little bit smoothly for their team. They don't seem to have any flame drones watching them. They do have some claymores. They have one that's placed down, but they're gonna need a little bit more than that, as we do see right now Zero is kind of watching the hatch, not really paying attention. The potential is there that they could get a big pick, but my question is, where is Moss? We haven't seen him in a while. Well, they go down, so it doesn't really matter where they were, and Shadow does end up getting that flank taken down, Zero, as I mentioned previously. And with them going down, it puts things in a 4v3. They know there's a player above, so now they're a bit worried about the flank, but of course Shadow has anticipated that. They've rotated back down the site. 30 seconds left. Looks like an execute's about to happen.
Smart of Shadow to play site instead, kind of puts that fear into the players on site and at least make them fear a flank going on. But as the time keeps on ticking down, so those kills keep on racking up, and Seagulls still have their main advantage. Shrimp is down on the floor, and Rudy gets picked off, making it the 2v1, theoretically a 3v1. But Shrimp is down, and at some point maybe he'll get picked back up. Shadow though gonna rotate through the vault, and the plant gonna be stuck by Nav, but there goes Flixer right in front of the red doorway, or the double doors towards red, to cut off the angle, or to cut off the flank coming in from Shadow, who could have had a more influential who couldn't have really played a more influential part in that round. He tried his best going for the flank, and it just, it ended up with one kill. It kind of slowed down the attack for just a little bit, but Seagulls didn't misplace a step.
Unfortunately, there, Shadow decided that it would be a good idea to sprint, which gave away their position, and then they decided to sprint straight into a hallway. And that's why you don't sprint when you're in those clutch scenarios. It gives away your position. It's just not powerful enough of a tool to really justify bringing to the table. And so they go down. That round is lost. And NTHS, they are deciding not to go back down the basement for their third round in a row. Instead, they're going to head up to CEO, where they are going to decide if they can potentially win a round on this map. They so far have kind of crumbled apart early on, and then in the end round, they've made a couple of mistakes that have put themselves in less than ideal situations, but they've shown some potential. I've seen some adaptations coming out from them, adaptations which I like, and I'm hoping that they'll continue to make those adaptations, and hopefully things will work out for them. We are seeing 2 new operators for the side, of course, being a Rune knee, which can be placed on those windows, those walls, wherever you want them to be, and it'll just deny that space or players from pushing in or utility from coming through. And as well, of course, the ever-present, nowadays it feels like Frost coming out here for Moss, who's going to try to potentially stop the players on Seagull from either vaulting in or make things very difficult if they do. And speaking of making things difficult for Seagulls, Flixer gets a little bit overzealous, I would say, and an early kill for Spider Fries as they get the man count squarely in NTHS's favor. And right now, we are going to see that this top floor has already got a lot of pressure on it from Not Gav, or Nat Gav, excuse me. It does go ahead and push in. They do get taken out, but Shrimp does end up finding another one, and then Star Force gets one as well, down to a 2v4. That man advantage is squarely going in their favor, but Shrimp is trying to even things up. A double kill for them in this round as they get the kill on Star Force, and Bad Karma does not check their side, and they get killed by Rudy. That's why you need a drone, ladies and gentlemen, as they end up going down, leaving Shrimp in a 1v3. Now, trying to see if they can win this out, as Moss is on low HP, so there isn't too much they can potentially do if they're not careful. But, of course, it's a one-shot headshot game. Shrimp has low health to boot as well, so things not looking like the best winnable scenario for them. But the wall is open into sight, so they do have an area of attack, and also they do have diffuser in pocket. So things aren't all doom and gloom for them, but it's still not the great situation to be in.
Yeah, it's not a very clutchable situation here for the Ace in the 1v3 situation. Yes, you still do have diffuser. At least you're not on 1 health, and you have a good gun to show off for it, but even that good gun can't even hit the first shot that they are encountered with Shrimp Moss on the Frost, the new operator that you mentioned, not really being a prevalent factor that round for NTHS, but them just taking aggressive gunfights when they needed to and winning them out forthrightly. Won them that round pretty well. It got some pretty important refrags, and Seagulls couldn't really adjust to it.
That is Seagull's first round loss, and NTHS's first round win, as they looked a lot more confident on that top floor dealing with those roamers, those entry players for them. It seems like that when they don't have to deal as much with a roam that's coming in and taking out some of their stragglers, they're able to stabilize a lot better in sight, which it might be why they favor that top floor better. But in any case, they are going to choose to head back down to the basement. This time around, make another adjustment, bringing the Goyo in, as well as an operator that is excellent paired with Goyo. That, of course, being Maestro, who's Maestro Cams can pop the Goyo canisters. And we are seeing almost all of their Goyo canisters, or at least a lot of them, being placed around the default plant spots. And while they don't have a smoke on the board to toss those over, putting all of them over there does mean that, well, there's the potential they could get naded out or destroyed all at once, but it also does mean that there is potentially a ton, I don't remember the exact timing, sadly, but a lot of time that could be denied if they all went off one by one by one. They are a little bit close together, which I'm a little bit concerned about. There is a bit of an explosion that does happen, but if they all manage to go off one after the other, they could end up stalling for a lot longer than Seagulls are anticipating, and that could win them the round if they don't make those adjustments.
Yeah, Goyo canisters do roll. Vulcan canisters, if they're more accurately called or more properly called. Bad Karma jumping down off the roof onto that terrace window, gets the first pick through the wall. What type of intel did Seagulls have? I wonder. Doesn't really matter though. They get that first pick, and I mean that does help them in getting control of the first floor. The second floor, because Spider Fries was the only one in that position roaming on that top floor. Nobody else from NTHS was there to support him. And I mean, that's just an unlucky first pick to give away for NTHS. 2 minutes though, Seagulls have a lot of time to not only just take the rest of the map, but then slowly but surely figure out a way to execute.
5v4 now. Seagulls with that very early opening pick, putting themselves in an amazing situation, and there's no one really to contest them on this first floor either, so they're just going to go ahead and start getting these hatches open and start making their way into these power positions inside of the server, as well as we do see here the Zero at Obscure playing on the stairs, or well, now they've rotated all the way over to try to join their team. They do, of course, have the candle pushers in pocket, so we could see those hatches getting opened up and causing a decent bit of trouble if they're not careful. And now we do have some stuns going out here, trying to make sure that those measure cameras don't give away too much intel. And right now, Moss is in a very dangerous predicament. He's slaying on the table, and they've opened that up. They just completely see him, and the headshot kill does go their way. That's why you don't typically see anyone playing on that site. That wall gets opened so easily, especially when you don't have any hard breach denial on it. And if you go down, well, no one to really shoot the Goyo canisters. They're going to have to do that either with C4s or just with their guns and put themselves in a potentially dangerous situation.
In any other situation, Moss's position wouldn't be a bad one, but the fact that they had the wall open, and I think he was still on his cameras too, I just don't think he had that communication from his teammates. That wall was open, staring directly at him, giving a free kill over to the Seagulls. Rudy catches the hatch drop from Bad Karma, which could limit their potential in the execute, and a double nitro cell kill from Star Force equals out the man count, as Seagulls momentarily put themselves forward. A 2v2 now, Seagulls, with 25 seconds left on the clock. Obstacle still on the first floor on top of the hatches. Dies as he makes a death drop into red. And now it's up to Flixer in the 1v2. But he can't quite find his marks, his marks. As the first one, he doesn't even really see. And just like that, NTHS tie up, they tie up the round count between them and Seagulls, and Bank, just like that, has gotten a little bit more competitive.
A very well-needed round from NTHS as they finally win that basement site, and now they have to head to the tertiary of staff and open area, where we, of course, haven't seen them play so far. We've only seen 2 sites, but the adjustments that NTHS were able to make to win out that basement site, bringing that Goyo and realizing this is what we really need to stop them, and coupled with some really intelligently timed C4 tosses to just make sure that wall gets completely and totally that flank is completely totally denied, now means that Seagulls are now playing essentially a little bit of catch up here. They're not behind, it's tied still, but of course their lead that they had at 2-0 is completely gone, and now the adjustments that they have to make to win this one out are, of course, well, they know they're going to be attacking a first floor site, so if they can take the second floor, they can see operators like Fuse that Bad Karma showing right now could potentially provide them a lot of value if they're able to get rid of a lot of that utility, or force the defenders into situations they don't want to be in, and potentially into gunfights that they do not want to take in their current circumstances. And of course, we are going to be seeing some powerful operators try to prevent that from happening. Mute coming out here from Rudy to try to make sure that if they ever try to get any wall open or any drones, and they do end up getting denied. But of course, Spider is going to be on that vigil once again. No IQ to counter them. This could be a deadly lineup for NTHS if they're able to win their gunfights. And it looks like that NatGav, once again, another kill in nearly the exact same spot as last time, getting that kill onto Moz. There is a frost mat on that window. If they're not careful, it could get taken out. But of course, the Shrimp most likely going to be spotting it with that drone. There is someone down below that could shoot them if they get trapped in it. Well, time will only tell if that does end up happening now. But Moz going down once again. Seagulls on the back foot. They know that there's at least someone else upstairs, and they do not get caught by the frost mat that was cut out by the drone. But now it's all up to Spider to stay alive, and they do not for much longer. Bad Karma taking them out, and the players above are dead. And now here comes the Fuse.
Yeah. One thing about this lineup from NTHS, they have no projectile to now. So while the Mute can deny intel, and that's mainly what he's doing for now due to his nerf a couple of while back, he's not used for hard breach denial as much anymore, mainly just for denying drones. Now the Fuse, though, is going to have free reign of the site as NTHS, clearly not predicting the predicament that they are in, second floor in complete control of the Seagulls. And I mean, this has been like the fifth round in a row where we've seen NTHS start off on a bad foot. I don't think they've had an opening kill quite yet inside of this matchup. The Seagulls have been on top in the early round. It's just that they struggle when it comes to executing and winning the important gunfights at the end. But let's see if they can do it now. But 5v3, there's really no room for mistakes. Seagulls, and for Seagulls, as NTHS, with the way that they set up the site as well, they don't really have a lot of flexibility around it. You saw the setup in the small office of open area. They didn't open that whole wall up so that they have a rotate in between, or in between that and archives. They just completely close that off, so they're forced to stay inside of sight in order to completely deny it from Seagulls.
One player playing down below Starforce. Flixers goes to try to take them out. Unfortunately, they fail. Starforce lets them swing another day. But Bad Karma just goes ahead and says, you know what? I'll do it myself. And they drop into sight with 2 kills with that AK, one of the most powerful guns in the game. And now it's all up to Starforce. A bit of lag there, but they do manage to get the kill onto NatGav. And now down to a 1v3. Technically, Atascocita has gone down to the Frost. I did not see it. They do see the foot. They do not decide to shoot it. The shots do ring true. Unfortunately, no kill goes their way. Starforce very low HP right now. They're worried about players finding them through these angles in the walls, but it's not going to be through that. It's going to be, once again, the Fuse pulling out that AK to get that final kill as they push right into the site. And with that, the round, it's squarely in Seagull's favor, and they managed to stay alive just for a little bit longer here. They've at least guaranteed their half, but NTHS, they're on a position to tie it up. The Seagulls, obviously, they want more. They want to make sure they get their 2-point lead back in their favor.
Yeah, so far so good for the Seagulls. They put themselves back in front. And for the most part in this matchup here on Bank, in the first, 5 rounds now going on into the 6th, they have been on the front foot, whether that is in terms of round count or whether that's in terms of start a physical round out. They almost always get the opening pick. They almost always have a good man advantage, whether it's a 5v3, 4v2, 3v2, something like that. It doesn't matter. Almost every single round, they're in the advantage. Apart from the one round that NTHS won, one of the 2 rounds that they won, which was on the second floor site. So my apologies. For Seagulls, they haven't gotten an opening pick in every single round. The one round that NTHS played that they won was on this site, and they got the opening pick on this site through Spider Fry. So hopefully they can repeat the same success where they seem to catch Seagulls off guard with some early aggression.
We are going to see Bad Karma going back to the Nook. They've played a lot of different operators, definitely seem to be the flex player for this team, playing a variety of different roles. And of course, we saw them have a phenomenal round with 3 kills to their name on the Fuse last time. No Fuse again, though, wouldn't make too much sense unless you're putting them on those windows, which can work, but they're just going to get shot most likely. So instead, over to the Nook once again. We didn't see the Nook work out too well last time the site was played. Unfortunately, they got caught out by a player playing inside of the elevator, of course. But now they have the potential to get something going here, potentially get a little bit more value a little bit earlier on, as they can, of course, make their way in a bit quicker. And speaking of making their way in quick, the Thatch on NatGav is going to immediately try to get that wall open. They do, of course, get spotted out by the cameras, and that ping does come through, but this is the time for Bad Karma to shine. They are going to go ahead and make their way all the way up these banana stairs and work their way all the way over nearly into sight. It's Moss who does end up getting the first kill, the Thorn that we had mentioned previously, and at least for the time being. It looks like the elevator player is going to catch them out again. They have to get forced to turn around, and Starforce from right behind the front desk does end up taking them out. And now 2 kills down for Seagulls. NTHS, once again, the opening pick, like you mentioned, is making things swing in their favor.
Yeah, for NTHS, opening picks have been rare, but the times that they have gotten it, aka at least on the second floor site when they've played it 2 times in a row, they have this man advantage of 5v3, and they were able to take out 2 separate pressure points, one on the top banana stairs, and then the other in that elevator hallway or towards janitor. As it doesn't seem like Seagulls have a lot of intel on the site or even the whole setup, as there's still a Valkyrie camera that exists on the top square. They have a player in janitor, but Moss hears him directly through that was in the game, but I'm not. He has a shotgun out. It's gonna blast him through the wall, please. No, saws the head, but can't quite hit it. Just did. Hits her a second time, and finally the shotgun, that German shotgun, does wonders for him. Next to kill, Obstacle finds one, and so the Shrimp and Obstacle finds another. NTHS, they're kind of dropping like flies at the moment, just as quickly as they dropped Seagulls.
Obstacle does go down, however, and now it's all down to Shrimp once again. This time a 1v2, however, a bit of a more favorable situation they were in last time. They have a little bit more health to their name as well, but the players on the side of NTHS have full health as well. Not going to give them anything to work with. They have no way of burning some Renegade aside from walking through, and of course they don't want to do so, but they were not expecting to rotate over, as it's Shadow with the AUG that does manage to get the final kill. A nice flick, actually, does end up confirming that for them, as NTHS, they managed to barely squeak out that half as a tie 3-3. Now it's Seagull's turn to attack, where they, of course, are going to be going down to the basement first, the site that we've seen, I think, the most so far out of all of them. And when the NTHS struggled with a little bit, they did manage to find their footing later on. Now the question is, are Seagulls going to struggle early as well, or they come out swinging right out the gate?
It does look like Seagulls have changed up their site choice. Originally wanting to go basement, but now switching it up just at the last couple of seconds to the second floor of CEO. And it seems like a pretty standard setup from their side, according to the operator lineup. You have the sight lines being made, at least, or towards top square. And you can hold that with really anybody with the 1.5, such as Matt Gav, if he's running the MP5K, which he is. Or even Bad Karma, sorry, not the MP5K, but, yeah, Valkyrie's gun, I keep forgetting what the name is, but the MP5K in the hands of Karma as well. If he's running a 1.5, another operator that can run a 1.5, Castle, Frost, literally, you have a defense full of guns that have the 1.5, so they can play these long angles from inside a B, from inside Janitor, or even from all the way towards Banana or the office right in front of Banana, if they really wanted to, which makes this a kind of aggressive setup just to deny as much map control as possible, seeing as how open Bank feels at times, especially on that second floor site.
I really like this setup more than I like the setup that NTHS were bringing on this side. Of course, it works, so I'm not going to knock it at all, but in terms of what they're actually bringing to the table, I personally quite enjoy, as we do see here operators that make things a lot easier for the defenders to deal with this attack from the attackers. That, of course, is going to be the big one in Castle. Him being brought to the table just means that they can cut off a few more angles and potentially make things a little bit more difficult for them if they're not paying attention, as well as we are going to have the Wamai on the field, which will stop any grenades these flash are getting thrown in. They'll get pulled off to a less than advantageous position, and all in all, I like what they're doing here as well with the deployable shield, just putting them in amazing positions to kind of play off of with these hard wall reinforcements that are there, and making things ever so difficult for them to really get anything going right now. But of course, we do have gunfights that have to occur. It's not just about the setup, it's about how well you swing off of it, and we are going to see 2 kills open up so far. It's this Bad Karma playing on that Wamai. It's a triple kill so far, going for a 4th, does not find it, however. Moss is there to shut them down, playing on that Osa. But now, with a minute 30 off the board and 3 players down for NTHS, they're not looking too good for them on this round.
Aggressive open setup from Seagulls, and they have to play aggressive around it, and so far so good, getting 3 picks through Bad Karma, who has no reason to get 3 picks like that. You know, maybe 1 or 2 is a little bit more, or well, 1 is kind of okay, 2 is a little bit more forgivable, 3, shame on you for giving it away. And Nat Gav playing aggressively on that top square wall, finds another, and Upskill finds the last, and just like that, Seagulls keep putting themselves in front. They've been in front for most of this game, and NTHS still haven't quite found a way to, they've been able to put themselves in the deadlock, but they haven't been able to quite break it just yet.
If this continues happening, we could see this map go to overtime, where eventually of course, with just the inevitability of it, it would be Seagulls that would win just because they're able to pull ahead instead of keeping things at a deadlock, as you mentioned. But, of course, we're not there just yet. We still have a few more rounds to go if it does come to that. But we could see Seagulls run away with things if defense is where they decide to play. We haven't seen NTHS do particularly well in this attack, but, of course, that was just round 1, and now they're going to have to attack the basement site, the first site of a lot of teams, including NTHS, who did, of course, play it 3 times in the last half. And, well, now we are seeing a lot of the same general ideas that we saw from NTHS on their 3rd time defending this being brought out immediately by Seagulls. Of course, we do have the smoke coming out here, but also the Goyo doubling up on that anti-plant denial to make sure that no one can really get in and actually get that down, as well as bringing the Maestro to go ahead and pop those Goyo canisters, as well as bringing the wall mine that I harped on in the previous round that gives them a lot of value against those grenades, as well as bringing the Vigil that we saw previously from NTHS that allowed them to play so well on the roam. And this time, once again, still on the 2nd floor. Now, this time, NTHS, they're going to have to close on Flixers on rather than getting closed in on themselves when they're playing the same ops.
Attackers have recovered their diffuser.
Agreed. Vigil's a very scary operator, probably a little bit more underrated than most operators. Bad Karma going for an aggressive peek towards Dirt. He can use this drone Moss to see that there is no support around Karma, so that makes, okay, never mind, the support has just come in, and that should be communicated on the drones. Moss a little bit too slow maybe to confirm that kill, but you see that? Seagulls, they get one down, they pick them right back up. And they also pick up right where they left off, still holding on into servers. And even though it looked like a good start initially from NTHS, the fight back, or really the comeback there from Seagulls, even though no kill was confirmed from either side, it's still something to harp on. They took back control of servers after it looked like they were initially going to lose it.
Attackers have dropped the bomb diffuser.
Quick rotate around, just put them in a good position here. In Natgab getting the kill into the hard breach is huge as well. Moss going down and getting tickled in the feet. They get removed from the board, and of course they try to equalize things by getting 1 kill onto Smoke. However, it's not enough to stem the flow of blood, at least for the time being, as Baghammer finds another. Rudy, though, is going to get the refrag onto Natgab this time, and now it's down to a 3v2. Bad Karma is in an aggressive position along with their teammate Flixers, trying to just see if they can make sure that these players on NTHS that are on this first floor stay there and don't go anywhere right now, as they are currently caught between a rock and a hard place, with the rock unfortunately falling back downstairs. They want to go ahead and get to the safety of their team right now, and I'm not sure if Bad Karma is continuing their flank or if they've gone ahead and rotated back down as well as these 2 remaining players in the NTHS. Yeah, we do see Flixers down below now. The Flash is coming out here trying to flush them out of the stairway they're not in, as they are just trying to move together as a unit down these stairs, at the very least try to get something going here, as they can, if they can find a pick and even things up, that would be huge for them. And we're about to see potentially gunfight happen here. Star Force playing down below. They just decide to run in for some reason. They get taken out, and Rudy gets one of their own as well, as they drop the hatch. And now the 2v1 Rudy's in sight, but unfortunately they don't have the diffuser with them.
It's good communication there from the Seagulls. The last 2 players not over-aggressive. Flixer running away just in the nick of time before Rudy can catch him. Save for Bad Karma, who's all the way in server. And Rudy, well, in a sense, has to go to them in order to make something happen, but they can't quite do it. The hatch play there from the Seagulls being a little bit too powerful. And again, the teamwork from Seagulls is something that I want to harp on in that round. You know, even though they didn't get a kill in opening pick, neither did NTHS get an opening pick in the first few seconds of that round, even though it was very close for NTHS to get it. You saw Seagulls kind of pick up their teammate, and then the rest of them were just watching over each other, retaking the positions that originally it looked like they lost. And at the end of that, good communication to not over-aggress. Flixer running up the main stairs instead of taking the head-on gunfights against the Thatcher. And that's the small details that you can see for Seagulls that doesn't really feel like it's quite there yet for NTHS.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused.
Sadly, I'd have to agree with you. It seems like Seagulls just aren't having the better communication. They are making some mistakes, which, of course, NTHS are capitalizing on fairly well. But the communication, the ability to support your team, is part of the reason why we saw NTHS struggle a little bit on those first couple of rounds they were defending. They were just leaving some of their players out to dry upstairs when they had to have known at least somewhat that there were a lot of players pushing in on them. They weren't able to back up. They weren't able to communicate that information and ultimately capitalize off of it. And it costed them dearly, I think, in those first 2 rounds. It put them behind. Even though they're able to tie things up, damage is already done, and now Seagulls, they're seemingly running away with it. 2 rounds in a row, similar to what we saw on the first half when they were attacking, and now they're going to have to defend this tertiary site. Site, obviously, tertiary for a reason. Not too many teams are too keen on defending it, so we could see NTHS come back here and capitalize off of some of the mistakes the Seagulls are making, but I agree with you, as you said, we are going to have to see NTHS kind of level up their communication here towards the end if we do want to see them really get too much value and potentially win out this map and go on to win the next ones.
See NTHS start off with some drones towards top square, being drone-led. Rudy on the buck carrying that Diamara cameras instead of the C8. My favorite gun probably in the game. I just like it. I like the way it sounds when it shoots and the recoil. It's nice. It's beautiful, especially on PC. But that's not really beautiful if you're an NTH fan or an NTHS player. Staff doesn't matter. They give up the first pick just like that. Rudy being drone-led. And again, you see the communication there, at least for NTHS. It's something that I harped about for Seagulls in the last round. For NTHS, it seems to have kind of come to fruition in this round as Rudy drone-led finds the opening kill, or not the opening pick, sorry, but finds the refrag and ops kill, finds another, keeping Seagulls in front. They retain that man advantage. For NTHS, they retain the top floor.
We see that fuse coming out. It was used against them by Seagulls in the last half, and now it's being used on them as Shadow is going to be the one running it down here, and we are going to see those can openers come to fruition on the buck as they do get those hatches open. And now, in quite a big predicament, are the final 4 remaining players of Seagulls, as now they've pretty much all rotated back down into the site proper, not really doing anything too crazy. While they do have 2 kills to their name right now, they're more or less just worried about stalling out the time and playing things slow, not really looking to get any more picks here. But of course, they are going to have to deal with those cluster nades. It does not find anything, however. It can't get it through the wall. That is not a soft one. Although it does scare Shrimp, it does not cause any damage whatsoever, except for maybe a little bit of the flooring afterwards. And while NTHS, they have done some damage, they need to get into site proper. They need to potentially start working their way down, and they need to start worrying about players like Bad Karma, who are still in this room, and players like Shrimp that are in these positions to potentially shut down whatever type of rush plant or push down from the top floor that they're going to try to do.
30 seconds left on the clock for NTHS to be able to make a play, and it's, you know, I say only, but I feel like that's a good amount of time. It's right in the middle, not even right in the middle really, but towards the end, as Star Force finds the rotate there from Bad Karma, not really expecting it nor having any intel. The Seagulls, and just like that, it's a 3v2 now turned 2v2, 2v1, and just like that, the smoke settles, dust clears. 1v1, Rudy pressure again, smartly dropping off, but this time the difference between last round and this round was that NTHS, they had the diffuser, but he couldn't let, or he just didn't want to. The sound through the hatch, the sound propagation just fooled them just a little bit too much. The Buck overthought it, and Seagulls put themselves on match point.
Not sure what happened there. Yeah, I guess it seemed like that they got scared that someone was pushing them, or maybe they started planting and their finger slipped off the key. Impossible to say from our perspective, of course, but in any event, it is going to be a very unfortunate round loss there. The clutch potential could have been huge, as they had the diffuser in hand. They could have got it down. There was just enough time to do so, I think, but it would have been close if they full sprinted up. Of course, they would have heard them coming, but you have to try to keep that plant down just in case. Bros don't fake. That's just the beauty of it, especially when there's no time left on the clock. You have to stick it right there. So I hope it was a mistake. I hope they didn't get off of it. But in any case, it is going to be a round loss for them, as now Seagulls head back up that top floor where they started things out on this map. They've made the full 3-map rotation, winning 3 in a row. In NTHS, they have not been able to find any footing so far. That was the closest they've gotten was last round. There's any time for them to make some adjustments and come back in this round. It's got to be now. There's no time left to waste. Although, of course, it's going to be difficult, as Seagulls look to be on a clean total tear right now, not letting up at all.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb and
goes back to my point that I had previously about Seagulls just continuously being on top. It seems like they just have the better teamwork at the moment. NTHS instead of NTHS, and for NTHS, that could change in the next map. Who knows? But for right now, it doesn't really seem likely that it will happen. quite yet on Bank. You see the same setup as last time. It seems that Obstacle is going to change. I can't remember who he was in that previous round, but I think he changed from whatever he had previously to a Thorn, which is pretty nice. They're playing a little bit more into the traps while not having too many traps or a lot of traps in the setup. Bad Karma playing aggressively around the stock room towards the window, and Rudy has to be a little bit careful because at some point Bad Karma could push up that window, but he is being held up at bay by Rudy's teammate who sits right above him on that Rudy.
Bad Karma once again with the MP5K in hand gets another kill out those windows. This time it's Star Force going down, and Spider Fries gets down as well. Not sure from where, but they're going to try to confirm that here. Potentially Bad Karma pushing up again. They get another kill. They get 2 of them as well. They're not paying attention. They get 3! And that's all of them there, as that round very quickly got shut down as well. Sadly, NTHS was not expecting the aggression out there from. And we are back, everyone. Told you it was going to be a short break. We are heading into map 2, straight into things. No time for a delay here. We all have places to be. And starting things out on Chalet. Seagulls, they get the defensive half first. They are undefeated so far in the defensive half, 4 rounds in a row, and looking to continue their streak as they start things out for their team by defending Flores first things first. And, well, of course, NTHS. They're going to follow up soon afterwards. Of course, my name is Power of the Storm, joined by Shaka. And if you missed it, we are in the grand finals of High School Esports League, a spring major. And like we said, we're not wasting any time. We're getting straight into things. Welcome, everyone, to Map 2.
Yeah, and by the looks of things, it seems to be NTHS's map pick. So hopefully looking to have a better performance, at least on the attacking half, than they did on Bank. Of course, not winning any attacking rounds on Bank, which is a little bit odd to say about Bank because it's mainly attackers sided, just because of how open the maps feel and just because of everything else. Maybe not so much on Basement because you have too much to worry about. But now we're on Chalet. Bans have come through and they seem to be pretty average bans, especially in this meta. Flores not really related to the meta, just mainly related to the map. There's a lot of util that you want to keep up as a defense, whether it's castle barricades, whether it's just shields or zombie barriers. If she's left unbanned, which she is, you want to keep those up because you want to have an easier time defending Chalet than you want the attack to have an easier time attacking it.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs as they can.
Now, we do have the Valkyrie being banned as well as an operator that we did see quite a bit of in the previous map is now taken off the board. Mira was banned in her place. And, well, we didn't really see her, obviously. We're probably not going to see too much of her on this map. Not the greatest choice to bring. She can provide some utility on some sites, but ultimately, if we are going to see her, it's probably going to be on Basement, not much else. There are a lot of teams that actually don't really prefer heading down to Basement. It's one of their least favorite map picks. It's either Basement or Kitchen, but you see Kitchen actually is the very first site being brought out by the Seagulls, which is a site that I have more and more recently seen becoming people's favorite. Every site on this map is viable to some degree, I think. I think all the maps are relatively equal. It depends on how your team likes to play and what you like to bring to the table. And of course, Seagulls, they opt to bring that out first. Could just be a bit of a surprise pick, try to throw off the players on NTHS saying, "Oh, we're going to say you're not used to it." But at least, could be the case. Seagulls prefer this site, of course. They do seem rather comfortable with their setup, and of course, they had an amazing setup in the previous map. The hope is that they'll continue that into this one as well. And maybe a map they might not play as much. Who knows? Maybe Bank was a comfort for them.
Yeah, for sure. Bank I don't know how to explain Bank because it's not. When I look at Bank, it's not like something that I would describe as a comfort pick. But jeez, I mean, Seagulls were so used to making plays like those on Bank, and now they're making it here on Chalet. Not really in terms of them just pushing out in the map and playing on the windows, but that time they were playing on the windows, but they just jumped out of it coolly. Get a 1-for-1 trade, and although you do have a player down on Seagulls, get rid of the Nomad in the very first round, and very early on too, she doesn't really have a chance to set up those air jabs, whereas with Chalet, even just like on Bank, flanks are pretty prevalent on this map, especially from the defenders, because you have to make make those type of plays. Bad Karma almost finds 2 as he takes out 1, but immediately traded out. So NTHS is doing a good job of keeping the man counts leveled.
Things equalizing for a split second, however, as Moss does end up finding another one. Now it's all down to the 2 UK ops, as they are the only ones left to try to make things work. Of course, a bit of damage onto Moss, but Upskill does not want to stay for long. They do rotate back down into the site proper, where there is a fuse above, who's going to rain Hellfire from above and try to remove Obskill and all the other defenders, or well, the one other defender, from their power positions, and they manage to do so now. They are now in a couple of sticky situations here, as they can't really watch the hatch drop all too effective. Players pushing down trophy stairs, where Moss is right now, and unfortunately, Obskill does not worry about it as much as they should. Shrimp, however, is able to get the refrag, though. A triple kill for them. If they win this one, it's going to be an ace in a 1v3 clutch at that. Shadow looks like they're about to drop the hats. They're debating on it. They're not sure what they want to do. They're waiting for their teammate to get into a better position here. They push all the way up through the dining hallway, but they don't want to push in the site directly. They're worried there might be an angle being held. There is. The shot's running through. They do not ring through, however, and they do not get that kill. Now Shadow is planting. The smoke has been tossed, trying to provide a little bit of cover, and unfortunately, despite the shots from Shrimp, they're not able to find their target. And Sam Fisher is able to just barely find that kill and secure the round for their team's favor. But definitely very messy.
Yeah, for sure. At least at the end of that, you saw kind of like an intelligent play with the smoke, trying to use it in order to force spiders and, well, at least the planter off the plant, and then the spider to swing the way that he did. And it was just a little bit unfortunate that Shrimp just missed out on the shots just a little bit. Seagulls, though, they get that first pick, immediately traded out. NTHS keeping themselves on top of the trades, and it seems like on top of the map so far too. The first round still goes in favor of them, and it's still pretty early to tell. But it's a good round to claim nonetheless. That's one at least for the books and at least for the confidence. But let's see if they can win a couple more of these attacks, because again, Bank, which is noted as more of an attacker side of the map, but according to like statistics at least in the PL, they didn't really do well on the attack at all. So it's kind of odd to say that about Bank, but on Chalet, they have a much better opportunity to change that, because at least the way that Chalet plays out, Bank is a little less like this. Chalet's a little bit more attacker sided with the way that the map is structured. Bank, it can go 50-50.
Most maps, I feel like, when they first get added into the Pro League pool, and we do see them get played a bit, they can sometimes be a bit more attacker sided, as teams are really figuring out what the best strategy is to defend it. They're experimenting, and they're coming up with ideas that, you know, might work a few times, and another team just figures out the counter for it immediately, and then they can counter them, and then it just gets it's a little bit of a rock paper scissors. Sometimes you can see the attacking team kind of come out on top, and I feel like that's what we saw on Bank for a little bit, but as it sables out, things tend to glean towards the defenders. But now we are seeing a case where there are some maps that are just inherently more favored to the attackers. In particular, thinking of Border, right? Border is a very, very attacker-sided map, in particular in Pro League. And of course, we're not watching Pro League players, but of course, teams do try to emulate Pro League and utilize their strategies and play like them. They are the goal to push towards. And, well, at least for the time being here, we are going to see that happen from some of these players until something changes, and for whatever reason, Pro League is not the end-all be-all, which is possible to happen, but not what we're going to be seeing. So typically we do see at most levels of play that the kind of trajectory from the Pro League does line up at least somewhat loosely with what happens in the actual games themselves. Maybe a little bit of more outliers throwing the data around, but generally lining up from what we see here. And speaking of lining up, the players on NTHS, they did not, as we did not see a jump out get anything, but now the kills starting to fly. They're starting to get into some scrappy gunfights here, and players like Bad Karma, they're going to try to stabilize their team.
Yeah, Bad Karma lighting Spider Fries up, but Bad Karma himself is lit up too. Very low in HP, Spider not so much, but he is still a bit tagged. And he's gonna try and aggress on the west main entrance, along with his friend in the IQ of Moss having that diffuser. But just like that, they could have potentially given two kills away if Moss wasn't too careful. But somehow, some way, Seagulls are not able to capitalize off of that ops kill. is going to find one, putting his team back in the thick of things. Nat, though, is going to give up his life, making it a 2v1. Opskill and back off away from the site. He has one to his west main, one in his trophy. Buck can make some extra angles inside of the kitchen site, at least through trophy, where Shadow is holding the swing here from Opskill. But as you can see by the angle he's holding, he doesn't really need to cross that unless the Buck goes into hallway, which he smartly doesn't. Shadow, though, holding the angle, and just like that, it's all been said and done. As simple as that, no dramatics. NTHS close out the round 2-0 at the moment here on Chalet Kitchen. Yeah, 100% win rate so far for NTHS. Seagulls may have to look elsewhere, and it seems like basement is going to be their target, or actually bar, sorry.
Now, teams do like to make those last-second adjustments, kind of showing what their hand, and then tripping us casters up, as, like you mentioned, bar is where they're going to choose to be going to, and of course, a Frost being brought out is not surprising at all, as well as the Aruni. This is a operator line that we saw quite a bit on the top floor of the previous map bank, where they like to run this operator lineup that included the Aruni and the Frost. Now they're bringing that over to bar, and I can't disagree with the strategy at hand. Of course, playing on that shield at the top of the library stairs can be oh so powerful if you play it properly with the Wamai. I've seen plenty of teams, or plenty of Wamai players, just throw all of their discs onto the same spot and then are surprised when all of them get destroyed by one nade. And in their defense, you know, that you could make the argument. It's like, oh, well, they're just hoping they're going to throw flashes and stuff like that, right? But players aren't smart. You got to predict around these things. They're going to throw in those C4s, throw in those explosives that you try to get rid of the shield and just hope that you don't have any more nades and pockets, which of course you do, because you're playing with mine. You get those back pretty frequently, all things considered, how many you do get over the course of a round, but at the very least, there is plenty on the board to get rid of them. We do have another Fuse coming out. Fuse seeming to be a very popular choice for NTHS on this map, but as well as some nades from Starforce and the impacts from Rudy to try and remove the shield, as once that's done, that's a lot of power play off the board for the defenders.
And in this defense as well, you see Seagulls kind of double up on the projectile denial with the Wumai and Jaeger both being in play. You mentioned how much you kind of like the Wumai. I like both Wumai and Jaeger being in the same lineup. It just makes it so much harder to use the nades and at least get rid of some of these power positions that Seagulls have set up across the map. And of course, with Flores being banned, they're going to have a tougher time with dealing with those shields as they originally would if he were unbanned. But also, if Flores was unbanned and you did play him, you can use the mute to counter him just as easily as that, because playing a Flores with the mute on the board can be quite difficult. So far, though, NTHS seems to be taking this round slowly, as they don't have the big window in the library open, but they do have a player on the outside of this piano balcony, Rudy, holding an angle towards the top of the vine stairs. But again, Seagulls kind of playing this a little bit smart. They're not aggressing. They're not running into any of the crossfires that Seagulls have set up. And even though NTHS get the first pick, Seagulls fight back with the refrag.
Yeah, that nade getting one, but immediately getting refragged. They won't be able to use that second nade to potentially clear anybody else out, but the kill they got was onto Natgaff playing on the smoke. That's huge. That plant denial is gone, but of course, the players in NTHS, they're going to have to push in here if they want to try to get that plant down in the first place. And when you get killed by Flixers on playing with this DMR, well, it's not a good start to your push. Now, is it here, as they already are lining up positions that are being watched. Rudy swings and is able to kill Bad Karma. They're not able to find those shots with the 416. And now the feed is showing as Obskill playing on the Mez balcony. And tries to pick them up, unfortunately not able to do so. Still playing above him. Flixer now has a triple kill to their name, looking for that ace, as they make things oh so difficult for them. Shadow does end up finding Obstacle, though. That does put things in a 2v4, but it's full health for the defenders and very low HP for the attackers now. And they're still in very powerful positions here with Shrimp playing above. They're all going to this window, and of course, we do know Flixer's out for blood, trying to make this happen and go in their favor.
15 seconds remaining.
Flixer already got a 3K. He's done his job so far in this round, but it's still not quite done just yet. And just like that, an ace in the card for the Aruni. And all he did was just play inside of a stock. That's all he did. And he got all of those kills from that window from Seagulls who, if I'm being honest, were just a little bit slow in their prep in the way that they were preparing to take that. It didn't really seem like they have a dedicated push really much anywhere. They didn't have K9 window open. They only had library hallway window open. They didn't have the library double window open, and they didn't really put any pressure onto that top floor setup from Seagulls. They mainly just pressured, they tried to mainly just put pressure onto site
Attackers need to
while
locate and
holding
defuse
cross
as
angles
many
on the
bombs
top
as they
floor,
can.
and that didn't really amount to anything.
Even if they had gotten inside, they would not have been able to stop the play from above. That hatch was open, and they had someone above them, so really nothing they could have done there. Like you mentioned, not the greatest push at all. Didn't really seem to know what they wanted to do when attacking that site. But in any case, great work on the players on Seagulls for kind of routing them into the line of sight of their carry, it seems. Flixer, who gets a 5K and ace with the DMR of all weapons. Absolutely amazing stuff from them, as now we are seeing the players on Seagulls head down to basement, where we are going to see a couple of similar operators that we've seen, but an Azami on the board, who was banned out in the last map. We did not see her at all, and now she's brought on the board to try to make this basement setup just go a little bit more in their favor, as Wine Cellar is a very open site. There are corners to hide in, but none of them really give you a very powerful position to attack. But of course, they're going to have to be more concerned about the push coming in from the main wall, as an OSA is on the board to try to make that push go a little bit more smoothly for them once they get that wall open.
Yeah, even though they're going for like the main wall, this doesn't really feel like the side of the map that they want to execute on, because they only have the ace in play, at least on that main wall. Even though the fuser is in the hand of Moss, he does have the opportunity to rotate where the thermite is pushing, and they could make a plant over here by Wine if they get the whole wall open. Let's clear out some of the utility, pop the Goyos early, get rid of the Kiba barriers. Yes, that's a mouthful, but that's really the meta that we're in at Siege at the moment. It's kind of like a mix of utility meta plus gunfights. That's quite literally it. And you'll see a lot of that, at least in this matchup, because whatever the pros are doing, the kids are going to do as well. Moscow is going to be on the other side of the map, and it seems like so far NTHS are having some troubles pushing in from that north side of the map due to the aggression that Seagulls are just showing to them. They're keeping them at bay, taking these gunfights. No one's winning them, but they're doing a lot of damage to the NTHS roster, at least two of them, just like how NTHS have done a lot of damage to Bad Karma.
The big barriers are stalling for time. That wall got opened very quickly, but they haven't been able to really capitalize off it at all. But now the kills start coming through. We do see some refrags coming through, however, and things go in favor of NTHS, as now they have the main advantage. And a minute left on the board. There's still plenty of time for them to get the push in here, but they're going to need to do so soon. Potentially a few more kills coming out here. Try to make things a little bit easier for them. Unfortunately for Flixers, they are caught out of position by the players, Star Force. And now the diffuser is starting to go down by Moss on the other side of the map, but they weren't expecting. Shadow's got the cover, and they take out Shrimp, and now it's all down to Bad Karma in a 1v4 situation here. Unfortunately, they cannot even get one, as Moss, playing behind that shield, is going to take them out pretty handily. And now, well, another round for the attackers, as Seagulls managed to win out one, but they need to do a little bit better than that, as NTHS have guaranteed at least the half is going to go in their favor, but of course they're looking for more. 5-1 scored lines in their cards if they manage to win out these next couple of rounds.
Yeah, a pretty well executed attack from their side. Initially, I thought maybe Moss was going to readjust where he was going to plant, maybe behind the wine racks, or right next to the wine racks, or the middle part of the wine. But even then, really nice push. They kind of made Seagulls very much suffocated. They opened up the walls, eliminated some of their comfort points, and although NTHS initially seemed to be a little bit timid at first, Seagulls were just playing aggressively, and in that situation you have to be careful with how you take those gunfights, especially against some of the guns that the defenders have. And they were very careful with it, but then they also capitalized off of some of the over-aggression there from Seagulls. And it's not necessarily like over-aggression in a bad way. They had to be aggressive because of the walls that were opened up. You know, elbow wall, the north main wall and
5
wide.
seconds
It had garage wall open, and it forced Seagulls to play a hand in which they
Attackers
didn't
are
really
moving
want
out
to be
to
forced
locate
to
a
play.
bomb and
And you
defuse it.
saw how uncomfortable that made them, because they gave up a lot of picks as soon as NTHS opened up elbow. As soon as that happened, they just did not feel comfortable defending the site anymore, and it caused players like Nat to run out towards elbow and give up his life away for free, just like how he ran out of the fluke window and could have potentially given up his life for free, but that's just to put some fear into the hearts of NTHS.
Playing very aggressively here as NTHS go ahead and start getting on these drones. We're seeing Starforce droning out the site, Spider droning off this top floor, and working their way over to the library stairs as well. Rudy now joining them as just a lot of drones coming in here. They need to be careful with them though. If they end up losing any of them, that could be dangerous. Already 4 drones off the board, and as the round progresses, you do not want to see that count get too much lower in the process of it. Now, of course, they are going to start pushing in here. We do see one of them on the balcony now, and Rudy jumps on in through the fluke window and takes out Bad Karma as they end up going down now, and they make their way over to join their teammate in library. These angles going here. That wall does get opened by Shadow, and they do have someone, the OSA, playing close on that window, or that K9.
Attackers
Try
have
to
located a bomb.
press out a little bit here. Try to make sure things can get a bit dangerous as smoke does get tossed. Try to force them out of the position as we do have things slowing down just a little bit. But as I say, that Natgab does open things up for their team. For Rudy, the reef frag, and they play a bit too aggressively in my opinion. Not sure why they're drinking there. And Spider does pick up that reef frag very early on, I would say. There's minute 15 left, still plenty of time for the attackers to get pushed in.
Also still plenty of time for Eagles to mount a comeback of some sorts, but NTHS, they just have that whole south side of the map on lock. One or the second smoke grenade being thrown towards that fluke door pushes the Osa back, and so she can't aggressively hold that for as long as possible. But the smoke doesn't last for really, it does last for quite a bit, but it doesn't last for the whole entire round. You still have 15 seconds of pop, and just like that, all you have to do if you're NTHS or if you're the OSA, you just have to wait 15 seconds for the smoke to dissipate, and you can retake that angle and hold it again. Singles, though, looking to move around, finds some isolated picks. Knobskill finds one up to Spider. Now a 3v3 NTHS. They're inside the site. Moss now behind the half wall in that default plant spot. It doesn't look like he's quite comfortable. So now to get that plant off the diffuser does get nitroed as Moss is going to be forced to drop out for the rest of this round. Now with 2 seconds left. The Ace has to retake the position. Starforce getting a very crucial kill inside a piano, which means that Shadow could potentially get this plant off if he needs to, but Flixer clutches it out in the 1v1, and Shadow had to make a decision there. The decision was to take the one-on-one gunfight, and to be honest, that's quite literally the correct decision, you know? If you're planting, you're gonna be caught in a very vulnerable position, and he just didn't want to deal with it.
Sadly, could not beat the drop shot, although it was mostly removed from the game. Shotguns can still drop shot pretty effectively, all things considered, and we saw that come to fruition in that round. And Seagulls, they managed just a little bit as they did manage to win that one out. And now we do come to us for just a brief period of time, a little bit of a pause. So you had to deal with our lovely faces for just a little bit longer. But I do want to talk about how in that round we did see something that I have noticed happening a few times from the attacking team. And we mentioned that in the previous round as well when they're attacking on base. But that is, of course, that they can sometimes slow down and even stall out if they're not careful. We saw that happen when they were attacking bar. We saw that happen a little bit before they were able to pick things back up attacking basement, and that happened certainly when they were attacking this last round as well. As they try to go in, they try to get that push going, and they tried to maybe see what they could do about winning that one out, and maybe try to get some picks, but they just weren't really getting anything, and they just took too much time to really get in and start planting things and start taking that space they needed to take after they got the site open. But it was too late, and the time cost them there, and they had to make some risky plays that in the end they ultimately fell to. And if that continues to be a trend, and we do see the Seagulls managing to capitalize off of it, This could be where they mount a pretty decisive comeback.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot harder to catch that out once they get on once Seagulls do get on the attack and we see NTHS get on the defense. But if they can make something happen in what is the last round, no matter what, it's gonna be the last round before we see them switch sides. If they can tie up the half, I feel like that'll be a pretty good half for Seagulls. Or well, wait, yeah, it could be a pretty good half for Seagulls. Because of the way they started it off initially, it didn't really look too bright. It looked like they were struggling just a little bit, at least in their defensive half.
So yeah, unfortunately, we are still waiting on things to kind of come back into focus. It's still just waiting on the pause and the technical issue to completely subside. But we are, in the meantime, going to just go ahead and go to just a real quick break. Like we said, not too long. Just want to make sure everything gets situated. So we'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere, okay?
Attackers need
All
to
right,
locate
everyone,
and
welcome
defuse.
back once again. Sorry about that delay, but getting back into things. We did have a rehost, sadly, so the kills are gone, but the round is still the same as we are heading back to basement, or excuse me, not basement, to bar, the other B word, once again, as we are seeing now the players on Seagulls do their second defensive setup here, where we're seeing a very similar lineup to what they brought out previously, but also, so the knowledge that they won the last one is on their minds, and they have made an adjustment to bring that Jaeger that you mentioned works so well with the Wamai. So, I'm going to be curious to see if NTHS are going to be able to make that adjustment and effectively shut down this defense, or if they're going to once again walk into the waiting bullets of Flixer playing again on the arena.
See what happens. Because all of those kills just happen on that bar window. I mean, this time the difference is that they have the OSA to set up on the bar window, where Flixer got that ace last time. Flixer now existing on the second floor in that library corner, or the dock corner, as I like to call it, just because the infamous dot plays that usually happen in the library. But there's a lot of pressure, at least from the outside here from NTHS, considerably more pressure on the second floor than there was in the last round. That nade forces Flixer to rotate in front of that sandwich window, but there's nobody to capitalize off of it. NTHS seem to be having some lapse in concentration, or the players, or the two players that were set up on that window were, and they can't really capitalize off of the kills. Star Force gonna have low HP, and just like that, an opportunity missed from NTHS, but they do clear out the library, so the mission successful, question mark?
To a certain extent, they were able to stay alive and get some damage in. They did stall out a minute and 30 seconds, but they need to do a little bit more. Flixer opened things up for their potential ace once again by getting another kill. Rudy, however, does manage to find one onto off the field as well. So trying to equalizing things at the end there. Moss is once again playing a little bit dirty as they're now trying to flush out where they do believe the players are sitting, as they are bringing another fuse that so far has netted them very little success in terms of actually getting kills, but has removed a lot of utility from the board here, and they're going to try to do so once again as they're seeing them completely decimate this site and remove it from any potential of it being valuable. But it's all down to Flixers as they get 2 as well. That's a triple K for them. 8 kills so far. No ace is going to be had at the very least, but still 8 kills in total on this site is absolutely absurd. There's no reason for them to be doing this well, and with Moss being the only one left, seems like they're just going to go ahead and give the team a little bit of a pause, give themselves time to kind of think, make sure everything is good on their team, and not really try to do anything too crazy.
Yeah. Flix is low in HP. He was camped out by the bar window, but I mean, it says to give NTHS a couple of seconds to talk, whether this is about future setups or even just the future rounds in this current matchup. In that sense, you're correct. I don't really think Flixer should be able to do what he's been able to do, but it's not really I mean, the main thing, it is about Flixer, but that's not really the main issue with the attacks there from NTHS on that bar site. They just can't get inside the building. Every time they try and step inside the building, they're getting shot at, they're getting lit up, or they just outright die to any of these Seagulls player, and that's been happening consistently on that site. And just like Bank, we have a 3-3 half here on Chalet, and Seagulls, initially, it was a 3-1 half, but, you know, they go back to bar twice, they win it twice, and NTHS can't quite cut it, or cut the mustard, at least on that bar site. And it forces them to draw out the half, and now they're switching on to the vulnerable side here of Chalet on the defense,
Defenders,
and the first site they
your
choose
bombs
is
from being
basement.
defused by attackers.
And down the basement first could be a bit of a bold strategy, but they are going to be bringing something to the table that we did not see from Seagulls when they defended it, and that is, of course, going to be Moss playing on the band. The bandit trick could be huge if they do decide to bring it to the table. Otherwise, it's going to be utilized as Kaid stand in to make sure that all the walls they care about get completely and totally shut out, which again, considering that Kaid was not brought, I do believe they decided to bring Mute instead of Bandit, so not surprising just to see Bandit being used in that way, but they do go ahead and open up that side wall instead of closing it out, meaning that we could see someone play aggressively, try to prevent anyone from getting in through the trench door. Interesting setup here. I'm not entirely sure if I'm down with it, I suppose. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I'll say that, but it is interesting, and I would love to see if it gets them any success in this match.
Yeah. Elbow, at least on Chalet, is kind of like the baby of Elbow in Oregon. You can kind of play it the same way, but you don't see teams experiment with it that much, just because you don't just open up Elbow and try to hold it aggressively, because you can get cut off by the doorway. Spider Fries, though, not really cut off on the site. He's just cut off on the first floor clear here from Seagulls as they work to clear out the rest of the map. They know that there's somebody on the second floor here for NTHS, but you also have some site focus as well. And I mean, just like that, even though Star Force, you can get cut off from the doorway like I mentioned, he doesn't. He's managed to get a refrag for his team, and not only can he hold off Elbow with the smokes, but he can also hold the doorway with his SMG or his shotgun, whichever arsenal or whichever weapon he's using. And it looks like Seagulls are just having so much trouble clearing them out. I mean, the hatch is right there. You can just cut them off from there or even the doorway like I mentioned, but they're not quite reading into this really well. And Starforce is able to just hold on to this. I don't know what's going on.
The players on NTHS are doing a very good job of winning this, but in particular Star Force is just holding this side down with the ferocity that you really need to do. So we do have Rudy, who has rotated over here to try to provide some cover for their team, and of course Shadow is just watching the side and Trinoin is flanking them, but the smoke coming out as well does even more damage on the Flixer now. As we see them rotate over here, they find just barely a shoulder, but they don't show too much. And if they just kept watching, maybe they could have gotten something, but Flixer, they don't want to just sit there and just wait for the shoulder to show. They want to rotate over, but Rudy gets one with a shotgun this time. His Shrimp that's gone down. Now it's just down to Flixer and Obskill, who are the only two remaining players. Obskill swings in, and they have something to guide them, but there's the freaking Jaeger ADS. This is just one of the most well-defended shields ever here, as the smoke is just completely shutting them down. They know they can't swing for the head, because if they do, they'll go down, and Flixer tries to rotate through blue, and it's Shadow who's watching that corner, ends up shutting them down. Now Obskill has to push in here. They do get one of their shields removed. They don't have time to put another one on. Just waiting here, waiting till they swing up. They swing from the side, they show their back, and they're able to swing just in time, and Star Force manages to hold the power position. A very dangerous one to be in, but it does end up succeeding, and I was a bit skeptical on it at first. It worked in the end, and it worked phenomenally.
It worked pretty well. I do have to say so myself, but Seagulls couldn't really... Yeah, there were a couple of times where Starforce kind of exposed himself to the doorway. If they had hatch open and dining, it didn't seem like it because nobody for Seagulls was playing on the hatch. And even then, you also have the shield, which in theory should be really easy to get rid of. Even if the ADS is there, it was the projectile now that NTHS had on the defense. All you have to do is burn it, throw a nade, and then that shield is gone, and Starforce doesn't have that position to play anymore, and he has to play a little bit more conservatively inside of the site, or he has to over-aggress an elbow and try and hunt for a kill or two. But Seagulls didn't really take any of those routes. They struggled to clear the shield. They struggled to capitalize on situations where Starforce exposed himself to the doorway. And I mean, Nat had the best opportunity to kill him, but he wasn't even looking at him. He just runs right into sight, jumps on top of the table, and he just doesn't notice Starforce. So lack of communication maybe on the side of Seagulls, and it causes him the whole entire round. NTHS take the lead for the first time inside of this matchup, and it only took them 2 maps to do it. I mean, not really. It didn't take them it's not the first time in this matchup, but for the second or third time in this map of Chalet, and they take themselves to the second floor of master bedroom and office.
Starting things out with a very strong defense, and they're going to see if they can replicate it this time around, as we do have the top floor being defended, as you mentioned here, with a very similar opera lineup to what we saw come from Seagulls when they decided to previously defend. They are going to be utilizing that Azami to hopefully a bit more effectiveness than what we saw from Seagulls in the previous map, as Bad Karma's already making their way in to blue. Now, as they're not really being a little bit too quiet about it, there's potential that Spider Fries has heard them. They're not really trying to capitalize off of it. It's now Star Force turn to play on this Aruni, try to shut down any push coming in here. And Flixers, the Aruni god themselves, is currently spending their time in stock, just kind of vibing, not really doing all too much, at least for the time being. It seems like a lot of players in Seagulls, they're very separated, trying to go for various different flanks and picks. And speaking of picks, Flixers from below with the nade is going to get one on the Moss. No more tricking can come out. They're hoping they use all of them to their full effectiveness, but it's not looking too good for NTHS. They're kind of getting them all right from Seagulls.
You see Seagulls make quick work of that south side wall in office, opening it up with the ace charges, and just like that, the kills start to ring in. NTHS falling, and the only one that they have left is Spider Fries, but just like that, he's caught out on the flank. The call coming through, and that's a flawless for Seagull. I think their first flawless, the first flawless that they have here on Chalet, but immediately a round win after losing, and now potentially either one of these teams could retake. It could either be NTHS retaking the lead or Seagulls taking the lead themselves. So far, so good though, because this match has been pretty weird. Like, Bank wasn't really close in the second half of it. First half was a little bit more back and forth, and Chalet, we're getting it on both sides.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Things back and forth. Once again, it seems like these players are just a bit more comfortable when it comes to this map. Maybe don't like Bank. I know there are not a lot of teams that like Bank. It's one of the more
I don't like
banned maps, I would think. Yeah, a lot of teams don't like. I personally have been indifferent. I haven't played it enough, I would say. Sadly, I don't have enough time to play this game. I'm just too busy doing all manner of things. But at the very least, from what I've heard, this map, or Bank isn't the most favored, but this map has slowly but surely become more and more favored by teams as time has gone. Teams to prefer it more and more. And at least for both these teams, that seems to be the case, as they have a bit of an interesting setup. I'm not entirely sure what's...
Attackers are moving.
I don't know what's going on there, right there.
Moss, you digging a hole? I don't know if there's anything down there. Oh, the angle onto the door. Ah, I see. I guess they're trying to prevent anyone from nading from below, I suppose. That potential is there. Definitely an interesting way to go about it, especially when they do have an Aruni on the board that could have made that immediately. But like I said, there are better things to do than just make a random hole in the floor. And I guess you don't want to make it too big, make it too obvious, but see if it actually nets them anything. It doesn't look like anyone's going from below to nade anyway.
Could be a possibility later on, but even then,
Oh, no.
I mean, how does this happen? Nat just goes into the fluke doorway, finds one, potentially could have gotten a second. Bad karma getting fragged, refragged at least with spider fries, and just like that, Seagulls start to run off pretty hotly through Nat, but they lose that man advantage just as quickly as they gained it. About a minute, or even just under a minute, has passed. Starforce back to his feet. And Seagulls, I mean, it's not a terrible spot. It's not even really a bad spot. But it's not a spot that you wouldn't necessarily want to be in with them being in a man disadvantage.
Well, maybe not for much longer. Yeah, not for much longer at all as Flixers. They're going to get one onto Shadow now. And Starforce, they're sitting pretty low as the rest of the players in this match are at full HP, at least the ones that are alive. So 3v3 technically, but the wall has been opened now. A lot of damage has been done. That gap, going for those aggressive plays, getting some value there, but then going for the re-swing again, and this time getting their head taken off. It seems like they're live by the swing, die by the swing is what I like to say, but at least for now, the remaining players on Seagulls, they're getting into these power positions, one outside in the fluke, Valk, one outside in the window, one outside the piano double, just trying to see where they can set up, potentially push in. They do have these Aruni gates in their way that are making things a little bit more difficult for them. They can't really get rid of it, and while the angle flick they're trying to find is so tight, they can't find anything for the moment. And Shrimp on this balcony can't see anyone either. They're swinging through their peak, and they're trying to see if one of the players on NTHS was quick peek their head, but no one does. So they just go ahead and push in here. No time to waste. Flixers does end up going down by Star, and Shrimp tries to start planting. They can't find one, but Obscure with the cover is able to get Star, taking them off the board. Now Rudy has pushed in here, try to find something, but the diffuser is going to go down, and it does indeed. And now, post-plant scenario, Rudy finds one, however, for now it's just up Shrimp on the Hassel. They peek up, they swing, they miss the shot, and they just can't find it, and they go down. And now the plant can go through. Rudy with the triple to help secure that round, and NTHS, they barely managed to hang on and take the lead back in their face.
Yeah, I felt like Flixer could have done with some more help in putting pressure onto Piano. Honestly, Flixer doesn't die in that position. He could probably hold onto the Piano window just a little bit longer and deny the cross angle, or sorry, deny, or have a cross to deny the rotate going in through between the sites. But again, he didn't really help. And I don't know if he wanted to take control of Piano, but he just didn't really seem to have any sort of, well, really anything. It seemed like he just kind of like died too early. I don't really know what the deal was over there by Piano. He could have just stayed alive longer, you know, Pepe Hens. I don't know. Just a bit weird of a situation. I felt like he shouldn't have really died there, but I could have been wrong. He may have gotten a call to just jump in and make a play, but even then, I doubt myself in that too.
These players do like to play quite aggressive. We mentioned that before, so that may have been what happened. Hard to tell, of course. We didn't see it, sadly, but enough about the last round. Moving on to this one, we are going to have Basement being brought out once again by NTHS, where, oh well, I'm hoping to see that same setup as before. It's Well, it looks like it might not happen. They don't have a mute on the board. It looks like they don't want to bring the same thing twice, as of course Seagulls are going to try to adapt to it, but yeah, not going to happen. Instead, they're just reinforcing that side off, not even worrying about it at all. They don't even have any deployable shields on the board, so I don't know what I was thinking. But it worked out so well. I was hoping
Attackers' objective is to locate a bomb and
see what Seagulls do to try to counter it. It looks like it's not going to happen, however. But they're still going to stick with the Blackbeard. A bit dishonorable, if you ask me. I'm not a big fan of that operator, but hey, you know, when you gotta win, you gotta win. So I guess I can't be too upset when you see it happen.
Yeah. You know, although I want to go back to your point about the Star Force strategy that we saw on the last time that NTHS played the basement site. I don't really think he should have gone back to it. I'm gonna be honest with you, because like it seems like Seagulls have brought a lot more utility to deal with those type of things now. I mean, really, they don't really have any nades in the lineup, but you still have like the Gon 6, you have more flashes, you have the Capital boats in order to force Star Force, if you were to play that position again, to be forced out of it back into the site and maybe into the loving hands of a teammate holding the door or even the hatch. But Spider Fries finds a refrag onto Natgav, and that's one of 2 hard breachers down, so I mean that's a pretty good position for NTHS to be in. They don't really have to worry about Seagulls being as flexible in getting these hatches open. But just as quickly as he got the refrag, his teammate does die, Shadow taken down. And so the Spider Fries now finally going down on the west main flank. Offskill is just tearing them apart with the Blackbeard, and Moss and the 1v3 turned from the 1v4. Has to find 3 more, but he can't quite do it. And Seagulls put themselves back into the thick of things. They deny match point here for NTHS and potentially could put themselves on match point, either one of these teams, for the next round.
Those aggressive plays that we have seen from Seagulls, they utilize them all in tandem to completely run over NTHS and their defense down on the basement side. It's one of the bad things about the basement side is there are so many angles you can come from. There's so many places you have to defend. You have to defend so many walls, so many doors, so many hallways, and ultimately get the roam on as well if you want to be have a lot of success. And well, we saw all of those just kind of get shut down pretty quickly. We saw some refrags
Defenders, protect your
out
bombs from being
from
defused by attackers.
NTHS to try and stop the flow of blood that was happening on their side, but it just wasn't enough. And they ultimately pay the price and losing that round and tying things up once again, not getting the match point as you mentioned. And of course, a lot of that was off the back of the Blackbeard that I mentioned at the beginning of that round. Obshko getting those 2 kills, surviving one of them by having that shield in place, the very first one they ran into. Very powerful operator in the right hand, and even though that gun is really, really bad, and even though their speed is really slow, not being able to get headshot and getting one with a headshot is still super strong. I don't like it, I don't respect it, but in the game, you can't fault them for using it to their full advantage.
Attackers' objective is to defuse a bomb.
Yeah, the MK.
What?
Has like the worst stats.
Okay.
It has like no recoil, which is like it. But other than that, everything else about it is just like bad. It's low magazine, low fire
just
rate,
hurt my feelings.
low damage.
Okay, you can stop. You can stop.
Hey, I'm just saying facts. Listen, that's all. I'm just saying the factual statistics of the gun. Just don't know what else to say.
Sources. Trust me.
Sources, the game. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm sorry.
Well,
This game.
Seagulls. So they got a drone in, so pretty good intel grabbed early on. Bad Harmon that there's a second player, but it isn't him to confirm the kill. It's Natgav. Just like that, Seagulls with the intel aided by a player just droning in and getting the intel for them. Got 2 kills, and they clear out the first 4 roams just like that in under a minute. And guess what? They get this wine cellar main wall open. It seems to be their main push as the Thermite has rotated or is being rotated there. Looks like he also is going to rotate towards Elbow instead of just right in front of the doorway. Star Force finds a fight back, and really for NTHS, you just have to depend on just getting frags here, as they don't really have any utility to aid them in slowing the push down. They have these zombie barriers that aren't rechargeable anymore because Rudy just can't recharge them. He doesn't have any more. but they can still play around it. And if Seagulls aren't careful in clearing this utility out or in playing around the angles, then they could get bit. But they have a player above and they have a player horizontally. Opshkill and NetGav finding those kills, and just like that, it's a 4v1. Moss has a player to his left, but doesn't quite react to it on time. He has a player behind him as well, and Seagulls put themselves on match point. The first time that they've been in the lead in this match, and it's the most important round of them all.
Once again, taking it to that defense with some aggressive plays was what they needed to do to win it out, as unfortunately NTHS, that roam that they have in kitchen was found out immediately, and then they saw the drones. They had to have known they were coming for them, but they just did not do anything to stop them. They even had Jackal on the board as well. Didn't really provide a whole lot, but still, you gotta know that it's happening. You gotta rotate or swing or do something there, not just sit there and take it. And sadly, what we saw happen there, we did see one person swing, but you gotta both swing together. You gotta both capitalize off of the fact that they're not really expecting you to do anything, or that they're a little bit on edge, and they might not be anticipating some hyper-aggressive plays, instead just anticipating the defensive ones. And, well, now they've paid the price for that with 2 rounds in a row lost, and they're staring down the barrel of a 7-5 loss. They've come so close to maybe winning out this map and taking us to a map 3, but it's just, it might not be in the cards. They can't pull this together.
Just not a good round to go off of. It's a good round to analyze if you're NTHS, to figure, just to kind of like tell you if there's one thing that's like Seagulls have been just like a little bit better at compared to NTHS. They both have had good games. They've had some players to show up in big moments. Star Force, Ruby, Spider Fries a couple of times on Bank at least. They've had good matches, both of them, but if there's one thing that Seagulls have been just a little bit better, is not only just really the intel gathering, the droning, but just the teamwork, the coordination. And as much as Siege is an FPS, it's also mainly a team game. You hear people harp on this a lot when you talk about like rank and there not being enough team play. And ranked and competitive, you have the perfect combination of team play, fraggers, and utility usage. And that's something that you need to be good at if you are going to be a team in the long run, and if you want to get further with your team as you advance in the competitions. And so far, NTHS, you have to look back at that round and say, well, what could we have done better? Well, let's first off, the first 4 players just swing a little bit more, be a little bit more mobile. But, I mean, in this round, you see Seagulls be a little bit mobile. A minute has passed. No kill has happened on the board for either one of these teams. But they have forced some players back, but there's still a player on the second floor, and Shadow holding across towards that half-wall piano.
2 players left to defend this top floor, as we do see them doing a decent job of stalling out for time. Minute 30 already off the board. Flixers is down below, making quick work of players like Rudy as they get taken out. And the swing comes through as well, but there's just this a complete mess of zombie barricades that are slowing down the attack and end up resulting in Flixers going down. But Shadow does end up getting downed, not killed, but just downed, as they now have to be revived by their teammate, and they give a little bit of position they might not have wanted to do. As well, now we do see a lot of shots coming out here, a lot of damage being done. Star Force and Shadow now are very low HP, but so is Shrimp, who actually gets killed this time by Star Force with no kill for them. But Obstacle trying to equalize things. They get 2, and they do indeed. They push too far into sight, however, and they get shut down by Star, and now it's all down to a 1v2. Nat has to go through the zombie barricade. They open up the wall with their shoddy, and now they're looking for at least one inside to try to make this a 1v1. As they see someone pushing in here, they find the feet. They do manage to get some shots off, but no kill does go their way. There is very little time left remaining. Now, only 20 seconds left. They do not know where Star is. They know they're somewhere in sight, but they do not know exactly where. And Star is able to capitalize off of that by getting Nat Gavin, getting themselves another kill in this round. That DMR has done wonders on this map, all things considered. And with that, we are now in overtime, ladies and gentlemen, as we do have both teams just barely able to get over that finish line and get themselves both to 6 wins.
You have to say it though. The Azami, as I thought she would be, especially on a map like Chalet, so open. You want to make your own angles. You want to use shields. You want to play power positions just a little bit more heavily on this map, as you would want to on maps like Border or even a map like Bank, for example. Azami is having a lot of influence on these defensive rounds because these defensive rounds they seem to have been won a lot
Attackers need to
more
locate and defuse
on
as many
today's
bombs as they
Chalet than I've ever seen on any other Chalet that I've watched and casted over the year or so that I've been casting. And it's something to kind of admire just a little bit. Azami is, as of recently, is probably the most influential operator alongside Solus. Mira is known to have changed the game and how we view it and how we view setups for so long, but Azami, with how flexible she is, she's very good at that too, and I feel like more so because she's able to be very agile with her utility and very mobile with it. Mira can't really do that. But even then, Azami's been so influential, slowing down the attacks, creating new angles, especially on the basement site, and now we just saw it in that last round of Kitchen. It has been an absolute travesty for the attackers to deal with. And they don't have the floors to deal with it. The only thing they really have are nades, gone sixes, impacts, and, well, even Ash. And that sounds like a lot, but it doesn't really seem like a lot to them because they're not really taking advantage of those. Or they're not really using them at all, if a lot.
And of course, there are ops like Jaeger that make things just even more difficult here.
Yep.
But it looks like they're taking your words to heart, as we do have both Bad Karma and Flixers bringing out these nades right now to try to get rid of the Azami that Rudy is once again bringing. And so, with things being in overtime, Seagulls are attacking here as they want to make sure that they start things off strong on the defensive side. They were able to take the advantage, but only once. They've only taken the advantage one time. They want to do so a lot more. As Moss, well, they unfortunately give the enemy team the advantage. They rotate to a bad position here. That window is open, and the first kill does end up going their way. The refrag is quick to come out, though, from Shadow, however, as once again, NatGav, aggressive play. They get one, but they stay a bit too long, and it costs them their life. But even though things have equalized, the man count was still in favor of NTHS for the moment. And Flixers, they're going to try to potentially stop that from continuing as they see some aggressive plays coming in here. They're already in the site props for Rudy, blocking up that double window to try and maybe stabilize their positioning for their team. And Shrimp, they're going to start planting right now. No one's really there to stop them as Obskill does manage to go down. Shadow, but they need to get more. And Flixers, well, they're able to get one. And Bad Karma gets two. There's still two players left. And it's post-plant situation. Now, Spider gets one. Down to a 2v2. Things are not looking the greatest for the NTHS players.
It's not really looking the greatest, even though it's a 2v2 now turned to 2v1. Man count isn't really all that much different in the last 5 or so seconds before the Jaeger of Spider Fries died. You just have so many cutoffs. Seagulls just seem like they're everywhere, and they put themselves on ultimate Chalet, but most importantly, serious point to advance them further up the bracket. NTHS missing out on an opportunity, and I mean, again, it's just capitalization here from Seagulls on the cutoffs. That time, Flixer had a little bit more support on the piano push from the Sledge inside of sight, being a little bit more aggressive and helping him kill the player who was holding piano instead of Flixer having to jump in through the window to try and kill him himself. He stayed alive for a little bit more longer, and he was able to be a little bit better in holding the cross angles or even just the cutoffs. Seagulls now OT match point, serious match point, and they have an opportunity to take it all here on Bar Gaming.
Bar Gaming, the site that Seagulls had a lot of success on when they defended this one. Flixers in particular, who once again is on the arena, is going to try to make things, well, make some magic once again, as they are currently in an amazing position to do so. They won one. All they do is just win another. The possibility is there that they could do so, and of course, winning this one, this is actually the grand finals. So whoever wins this one, they're not going on. They're going home with the bags. So we want to make sure that they are able to do so, and if they are able to do so without going all the way, that is what is, well, wanted by it. And of course, the later it gets, the more tired these players get. Seagulls want to close things out here in NTHS. They're fighting for their life right now. They have to win this one out, and they're going to start things out with this library take, where they can try to see if they can maybe get some kills. Flixer is not in their normal position, though. They're down in basement. A bit of an interesting choice.
Would have been an interesting choice. Last couple rounds, at least the last rounds we saw Seagulls play on it. They played it 2 times, now the third, as Obstacle is going to be the first pick from Star Force playing on the window, and you see NTHS start to create those cutoffs just a little bit early. Last 2 rounds, though, as I was going back to my previous point, Flixer was previously playing either on site or on the second floor. Now he's rotated back to site, or at least back into the position that was previously lost from Obstacle dying. And you see a couple of refrags go into Seagull's favor. So maybe with the extra added firepower that Flixer has added onto the second floor, Seagulls have an opportunity to not only, equalize the man count. I mean, they've already done that plus tenfolds, but they also have an opportunity to prolong their hold on the second floor with him taking this position. Flixer finding the 4th kill or the 3rd kill in this round, maybe finding a 4th, as there seems to be a stop or a hold in the NTHS lineup, and you can't really have that in the grand finals. 2 of you left alive, and none of you maybe lived to tell the tale. NTHS stuck between a rock and a hard spot, and they had to find the picks, be aggressive in order to have a chance of winning this round.
Once again, it's the Flixer show as they've gotten more kills to their name. They just seem to be at their best when they're playing with this DMR now. Shrimp gets once all down to Spider, swings, and it's not enough. Bad Karma and everyone else was there, but it's them to close things out at the end with what looks like a 1-tap. Oh my gosh. Completely shutting down